will protect you fiercely. And I will always sing to you when you can't sleep. I love our life.
I love him. I have to protect him.
I need you to take one deep breath for me, okay? That's good.
Everything's better with a little Beth on it. I love you, Beth.
I love you.
My husband.
William, you have so many beautiful futures in front of you. The best thing that ever happened to me. Time to spread your wings.
I love the mother that you are. The same woman who all those years ago.
Do you three know how much I love your mother? I mean, do you even have any idea?
Hey, just kidding, it's me. It's not him. I think we have a malfunction.
I'm gonna go with this. There we go. It's me. How are you?
Surprise.
Good. I get the handheld. Hey, how are you? Good morning. Great. Hey, for those of you who are new, my name is Rob, and I get to be one of the pastors on staff. And this is my wife, Denise, so please give a big welcome to Denise.
Thank you.
We are very excited. Like Daniel said, we're starting a new series called This Is Us, and clearly we ripped off the idea from the TV show that if you're not familiar with this series, welcome to Planet Earth. This is an amazing, well-written show, and honestly, I believe that tissue manufacturers, profits are going through the roof because, listen, I'm already giving up my man card. You cannot watch this show without just crying. My wife and my girl's been watching kind of every week, and I said, you know what, I'm going to binge watch it.
And I said, you cannot binge watch This Is Us.
I need counseling.
That is
like,
too
you
much.
watch more than one episode, and you're just a basket case in the corner in a fetal position. But anyway, we're so excited about this series. Actually, this series is going to take us all the way to Father's Day, and so very excited about it. But today is also, as Daniel said, it is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day, all you moms. Happy Mother's Day. Yeah. Give it up for all the moms. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, Mother.
And so, honestly, just grateful for all of you, all that you do. And but I would say it would not be, we would be remiss if we didn't say, just as a church, but also personally, that Mother's Day can be a really hard time for a lot of women. And sometimes it's because you're going through infertility and you're praying, but still no children. Or maybe it's because you're like, hey, I've been praying for a husband. I want to get the husband, then get the child. And that hasn't happened yet. Or possibly for some women, it's because you've lost a child. And so for many women, this is a day they avoid church because they don't want to be reminded of it. And so if you were brave enough to come and be with us, just know that your pain is not lost on us, and it's not lost on the Lord, and we're honored that you were here with us. And so I'm really excited today. We are going to, again, talk about Mother's Day. But as we get started, I saw this list, and I just got to read some of the list here, okay? So it's one of those, you know you're a mom when, right? You know you're a mom if, kind of like the you know you're a redneck if. You know you're a mom when you count the sprinkles on each kid's cupcake to make sure they're equal. Huh?
Amen. Yes.
Yeah, that's happening. This is one of my favorites. You know you're a mom when you only have got time to shave one leg a day. I don't have time for my other leg. I got to go make breakfast. You know you're a mom when you hide in the bathroom to be alone. Busted.
Yes, look at all the
You're saying, on my phone. All right. You know you're a mom when, this is probably my favorite. You know you're a mom when when a kid throws up and you catch it, right? You just have those kind of skills.
Ew.
You know you're a mom when you hope ketchup is actually a vegetable since it's the only one your child eats. That's good. You know you're a mom when your feet stick to the kitchen floor and you don't care anymore. I am done with it. I've cleaned that kitchen floor. You know you're a mom when your purse is crammed with emergency toys, candy, and first aid supplies, right? That's moms. And you know you're a mom when you say at least once a day, I am not cut out for this job. But you know you wouldn't trade it in for anything.
Amen.
And I know moms in the room, regardless of how recent you become a mom or how long ago you've been a mom, You resonate with that, I would bet. I'm sure there have been several days where you think, I am not cut out for this job, right? Because around you, in the world around you, and the social media around you, and possibly even the people around you, you are made to feel that you have to be the perfect mom, and the perfect wife, and the perfect cook, and the perfect employee, and the perfect boss, and the perfect seamstress, and the perfect, right? And like I said, social media doesn't help out. And so you get to the day just going, I can't do it. I simply can't do it. Well, here's our gift to you. Moms, listen to me. Take this one home with you. God does not expect you to be a perfect mom. So therefore, we do not expect you to be a perfect mom because you are surrounded with imperfect people and you're trying to raise imperfect people. Can I get an amen in the room? Lord have mercy. And so you do not, if you're trying to be perfect, if you're trying to measure up to someone's image of perfection, stop it right now. Just be who God created you to be and do what you do. So you don't have to be perfect. And so today what I want to do is I want to take a look at a mom who possibly you may not even know much about. Her name is Salome, and we find her in the New Testament. She's actually the mother of James and John, who are two very close friends, close disciples of Jesus. And she comes up to Jesus and has an interaction with Jesus. And I want to kind of see three major things that we can take from this passage. So we're going to spend time in Matthew's Gospel in chapter 20. And so I'm going to pick up right here. Verse 20. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons. So James and John were known as the sons of Zebedee, or the sons of thunder. And so her husband's name was Zebedee. We know from other Gospels her name was Salome. So then the mother of the Zebedee sons came to Jesus with her sons and, kneeling down, asked a favor of him. So she's showing great respect towards Jesus. And Jesus says, "What is it that you want?" And she said, "Grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." And so here's mom coming up here to make a request for her sons. And this is a pretty bold request. I mean, this is kind of like, usually she's hanging out in the background. Other Gospels talk about how she's hanging out with Mary Magdalene and also Mary. Some Gospels kind of refer to her as possibly that she would be Mary's sister. And so this could be a Jesus' aunt thing. And she's making this kind of in front of all the other disciples, in front of all the other people, and definitely in front of Jesus. She's being pretty bold here, right? She's could be sacrificing her reputation. And actually, what Jesus had just talked about before this might give us a clue to why she's being so bold. See, Jesus is talking, doing a lot of, telling a lot of parables, telling us stories with a point. And one of the ones he talks about, he says, hey, listen, just to let you know, when people are talking about, oh, I'm going to get to heaven, and hey, wealthy people have a really easy time to get into heaven because clearly they're blessed by God. He says, listen, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich person to get into heaven, because they want to worship their stuff versus worshiping him. And look what happens here in chapter 19, verse 25. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, well, who then could be saved? Jesus looked at them and said, with man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. Well, Peter answered him, well, Jesus, we have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us? Like, what about us? And he said to them, truly I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake will receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. And so Salome is thinking, well, hold on. I want my boys as close to Jesus as possible. I don't want any of this last business. And so she makes this request, willing to sacrifice maybe her reputation or whatever. And all that being said, if we could just pause in this moment and just agree that loving mothers sacrifice for their children's best interest. This is what moms do. Not that dads don't do it, but moms, we just want to shout out and acknowledge this is how you roll. When your child, when you see it, this is what's best for my child, you have the conversation with the teacher. You have sacrificed your time, you've sacrificed finances, and Lord knows you sacrificed sleep. Remember when you slept, moms? Remember that time? That time you slept? Right. You have sacrificed. This is what you do. You see something your children need, and you absolutely sacrifice for them. We just want to say first and foremost, thank you so much. And as Denise and I were talking about this, we're just kind of talking about some stuff that you know from in your family and whatnot. And so I just thought, you know what, would you elaborate on what we talked about?
Absolutely. We were processing this idea of sacrificial women and what that looks like, and even kind of researching, stories of heroic women, and it always comes up with these life or death situations. And as we were reading, it came to me that, you know what, I come from a really long line of sacrificial women on both sides of my family. But for these purposes, it felt like I needed to narrow in on my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. Her name was Evelyn. And Evelyn's life, most of us probably can't even fathom what she lived through. Her family story is not just sad and dysfunctional. It was actually notorious in the county in which they lived. And it was notorious because my great-grandfather, her father, was a raging alcoholic. And in a drunken rage, he killed her mother and went through systematically looking for each child to kill them as well. And Evelyn's youngest siblings, they were 5 and 7, and he killed them as they begged for their lives. And what was amazing about that, and then he killed himself, but what was amazing about that is Evelyn came out of those situations and went on to put herself through school and become a nurse, which was just phenomenal, imagining that was just the crescendo of the life that she led with this abusive father. And when she became a nurse, she then chose, as dysfunctional people who grow up in dysfunctional homes sometimes do, she chose a man who was just as violent and just as much addicted to alcohol as her father was. And so she's a nurse, and she's in this situation, and she has 3 children to raise. And by the Lord's grace, she finds a way to escape, and she loads up their, I think it was a 1949 car, and she packs up her children, and they move to the hills of Kentucky. And it's there that they finally can take a deep breath and go, thank you, Lord. We are away from this man who mercilessly beat her, abused the children. And she worked nights. She was a nurse, and it was the 1950s, so that wasn't a big deal. But she worked nights to be able to for them to be able to have a life. And somewhere in those moments of finally having safety and freedom, she finds out she has breast cancer. And so her time with her children was short when they could actually enjoy each other and have a real life. And the blessing that she gave them was to learn how to fight for themselves, how to sacrifice for one another and make life better. And for me, I received this gift from this woman I never even met. She was 45 when she passed away, and so my mom was only 12 years old. But I received this gift of this strong, powerful woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for her children's best.
Yeah, and she, because of her sacrifice, it really set a trajectory for the best interest she had for them, right? Yeah. One becomes a doctor, one becomes a businessman, and one, of course, an amazing mother of 4.
Absolutely.
And so just amazing, amazing sacrifice. So to reiterate, moms, we could tell stories all over the place about how you have sacrificed. And so on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for your sacrifice for the best interest of your children. And so now she makes this request, and then Jesus is going to speak into this in verse 22. He says, you don't even know what you're asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink? We can, they answered. Well, hold on, what's happened? We? What? Where'd the we come from? Well, here's what's happening. He's now speaking to James and John. If you read Mark's gospel, the same story's going on, except for Salome isn't mentioned. That Jesus knows, hey, this is the boys. And the boys come to him and say, hey, we want you to give us what we want. And he said basically the same thing. But Matthew says, yeah, actually, I remember the story, and remember his mama spoke up for him? So it's like these boys going, Mom, Jesus, we want to be closer. Can you go say something? And listen, here's what we know. Loving mothers fight for their children's dreams. It's not just their perspective. there, my parents saying, I know what your best interests are, but when you find out what your children's dreams are, you're like, Mama's going to fight for that, honey. I am going to fight for that. Moms, the countless hours that you have been at baseball games or football games or lacrosse games or cheerleading competitions or basketball games or some sort of singing event or drama or plays, things like that. I mean, how much time, you don't even know. Why? Because your son or daughter said, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. I'm going to be a professional singer. Yes, you are, baby. And Mama's going to help you do that. Money and time, you fight for their dream, not to mention all their academic dreams. You fight and you fight and you fight. It's what you do. And again, we could not be more grateful. When they're young, they don't even realize all that you do. But as we get older, hopefully they stop and they tell you, hey, I get it. I get it how you went without. I get it how you chose me more often than you chose you. And so, moms, thank you so much. And Denise, when I think about this, as we even talked about it, for fighting for children's dreams, actually the story didn't end with Evelyn.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my, that same sacrificial fighting spirit that my grandmother Evelyn had, well, her daughter Beverly, my mom, had that same thing. My mom defied the odds. When you think about it, statistically, when you come out of that much abuse, your life should look just like that or worse. That's how it goes, unfortunately. But my mom did not end up an alcoholic. She did not end up an abuser. She did not end up a drug addict, any of those things, because by God's grace, her story was different. And even though my mom was not able to finish high school, when I came to her and said, you know what, my big dream is I want to go to college, because financially, our family, our story was not suburban Atlanta. It was, in fact, a 1974 double-wide trailer in the heart of Alabama.
That's right.
And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud to be a trailer park girl.
Yes, and one of my favorite things about Denise is whenever she's been in a situation where she's literally had to kind of fight for her children's best interests or her children's dreams, and someone's kind of give them some reason for her to kind of, she says, they don't want me to go trailer park on them.
I'm like, do not let this exterior fool you. I will go trailer park on you.
Yes. And I just want to say, I've seen it.
It ain't pretty. It ain't
Run
pretty.
from it. Sorry.
It's all right. But what my parents did with what they had was absolutely remarkable, because they had a child, me, who was Goldilocks. I mean, I would look through the brochures and go on college visits and go, that one's too this, or that one's too big, or too, I was looking for the just right college. I mean, can anybody relate? Because that's what we're going through. And my poor parents, bless their hearts, our budgets, the school that I finally settled on that was the just right school was so far out of our reach financially, it might as well have been Harvard or Cambridge or Oxford. I mean, it was just really, really.
And what your parents probably weren't sure about then, but now it's very clear. If you ever spend any time around Denise, she loves anything British, British TV shows. The university she winds up going to looks like Oxford, so anyway.
It looked like England, so I'm like, I'm there. Let me go.
When I'm at home, she asks me to speak in a British accent. I'm kidding. Oh, I'm home, honey. No, I'm kidding.
He just does it anyway.
I'm just kidding. Joke.
But you know what was remarkable is that my mom didn't look at me and go, Denise, we have 6 of us in this family. Are you crazy? You know this school is outside of our financial reach. You know we can't do this. She didn't say any of those things. She looked me in the eye the way that mamas do, and she said, we'll figure it out. If this is where you're being called, we can do this. And they did. And I did my part. I worked on scholarships and worked through school, but the majority of it came provided by my parents. They worked extra jobs. They didn't allow themselves luxuries until I could get through school, because my mom knew my huge dream in life was to become an English major so that I could one day write like Harper Lee.
That's right. And Harper Lee was actually alumna of
I went to Huntington
alumni
College in Montgomery, Alabama, and she started out there.
That's right. Yeah. So that's so cool. Yeah.
It was a gift.
So clearly, after, your mom, as I know, sacrificed and fought.
Again and again.
Yeah, just as moms do. And so again, to reiterate, moms, thank you. It's not lost on us, and we're grateful for you. And so these boys say, hey, Jesus says, you think you can drink this cup? And they're like, yeah, you bet, man. And what happens is that Jesus now needs to bring some perspective. He needs to actually help James and John and Salome understand a little bit more about really what they're asking. Verse 23. Jesus said to them, well, actually, boys, you will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. And what you need to understand is what they're referring to, the right or my left. This was a position of authority. It was a position of power and honor and prestige if you were to sit the right or the left-hand side of a king. And so they're thinking, yeah, Jesus, your kingdom's coming in, and we want to be there, want to be as close to you as possible, and possibly get a little influence. You know what I'm saying? Come on. This is the three of us. We got a secret handshake. Come on. And Jesus is saying, actually, here's the thing. My Father, he makes those decisions, but now he's about to help them understand really what they're asking. He goes on. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the other two brothers. And you can imagine, right? They're like, man, you brought your mom to come up here and ask for you? You a fool, man. All right, Jesus called them together and said, okay, guys, listen. You know that the rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them. And their high officials exercise authority over them, their power, right, their prestige, things like that. They abuse it. But boys, listen to me. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be the first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so, overtly, there is this moment where Jesus makes this powerful statement. Man, I came to serve, not be served. Yeah, it's my kingdom. I came to serve, not be served. If you're going to drink of this cup, meaning you're going to follow me, then guess what? It's going to be marked by you are a servant first and foremost. You're not looking for your own glory and fame. No, we're here to serve, not getting a bunch of prestige and power. That's not what this thing's about. But overarching, there's something else that Jesus is saying, not just to the boys, but also to Salome. Salome, I know you have your picture of what you want for these boys. And boys, I know you have your own dreams, but at the end of the day, it may not look like what you think it's going to look like. Because James and John are thinking, it's going to be awesome. Right side, left side, high five, what? Shut up. We're like Twix. Let's do it. And Jesus is like, yeah, if you really knew what ultimately it looks like, James, you're going to be the first one to be martyred. John, you're going to live at a ripe old age, but a lot of it's going to be exiled. But I'm going to move within and through you, and your life will have a ripple effect, both of you, like you have no idea. But it's probably not going to go the way you think it's going to go. At the end of the day, here's what we have to fully realize and come to grips with as parents, and it's Mother's Day, so I speak specifically to moms. Man, you are awesome to even have best interests for your kids and to sacrifice for them. And you're amazing to fight for their dreams. Seriously, don't ever stop. But at the same time, what you have to hold in attention is this, is that God is sovereign and you are not in control. And your best interests and their dreams actually may not ultimately come about the way that you think or you even want. But here's my third point here, is what I would say is that loving mothers yield to God's definition of what's best for their children. See, loving mothers see at the end of the day to go, God, you're sovereign and you're eternal. I am temporary. You're always and forever. Your perspective is not limited. Mine is. My understanding is limited, but yours is not. So at the end of the day, the most logical decision for me is to place my kids and run and place them into your hands to know at the end of the day, you do see and you know what is best, far more than I do. See, loving mothers also have this moment where they're fully, acutely aware that, yes, they're your children, but at the end of the day, from an eternal picture, you are managers or stewards of these beautiful children, that actually they belong to Him. He and He alone is the only one who can carry them into eternity. So from the moment you give birth, from the moment that you adopt, from the moment that they become yours, in your best interest is acknowledge His love and His grace and His power and His sovereignty, and continue to pray your guts out to say, God, your ways above my ways. Amen. You know, that's in Scripture. It says that your ways are not my ways. In Proverbs 19:21, it says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. God will always get His way. And some days, you look at the life your children are leading when they're young or when they're old. It's not just when they graduate. And you're like, man, this is not the way we thought it would go. There are sometimes that they're in such a painful situation that you're like, God, there's no way that this is best. At the end of the day, we have to trust that sometimes God says, no, I'm going to take you through a difficult thing because I need you to trust me more than you ever have. I'm refining you. I'm sanctifying you. I'm using you to bless other people. I need you to trust me. And as I talk about that, clearly, it didn't stop. The story didn't stop with Evelyn. Right. It didn't stop with Beverly. It actually didn't even stop with you.
Right. Well, I thought it was going to stop with me because of our infertility. For 5 years, I thought this may never happen. I may never have that opportunity to hold a child in my arms and be the mom. But God in His kindness did bring us a child. But for me, Mother's Day, it's a complicated day. We have a complicated relationship because on Mother's Day for me, when I sat in a church or anywhere, on the days I wouldn't go to church because it was Mother's Day, it felt like it wasn't Mother's Day for me. It was not you day, not me day, because I know that there were people hurting and I'm hurting, and it's about that sense of loss. But God in His kindness brought us children through adoption. And after the 5 years of infertility, I thought, great, the hard part's over, right? I mean, everything from here is going to be a breeze. My expectations were so high because I knew I had put in all the time, all the prayer, all the effort prior to getting a child, that at this point, I am ready. I am going to knock down any wall in front of them. I'm going to go, and if there's potholes in front of them, I'm going to fill it up so that they don't have to fall in. Whatever it meant, I was going to make sure that they didn't have heartache or difficulties because that's my job. I'm the mom. What I realized is, like Salome, I was determined to do it really well because I like Jesus and He's my friend and He loves me, but that's not always how the story goes. And in 2009, our oldest daughter, Ellie, was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder. And if you don't know what that means, let me give you an illustration. Let me give you a picture. What we started praying for in terms of the best for our daughter, our dreams looked like just being able to be hugged without it feeling like needles to her skin. It looked like being able to come to church and not sitting with her ears covered because everything was 10 times louder than it is for the average person. It meant going to the mall and her not being terrified of everyone around her. And for a season, for almost 2 years, it meant being secluded in our home because she was terrified to go outside of that home. It meant for me being home with her for 2 years because she was so afraid that people were going to see her meltdowns and not want to be her friend. That was our reality. And as I'm rushing around, being the mom, trying to fix everything, looking for that superpower that's going to bring her back to life, bring her normalcy again, the Lord in His kindness stopped me and said, you know what? That's great. Everything you're doing is noble, and it's what a mother does. But you have to know that if there's going to be healing to this girl, it's going to be because I do it, not because you bring it. And He also said, if I choose not to heal her on this side of heaven, are you ready to deal with that as well? And so we both looked at each other and we took a deep breath and we're like, okay, Lord, we get this, that if she's going to be healed, you're going to do it. We can't do this on our own. And it just happens to be that our story is that He chose to heal her and bring her normalcy in life. And what that looks like now is that she goes to school and she went to the prom and she's filling out college applications and she went to Guatemala and shared her testimony with other children, and we went to China last year and she held medically high-risk children in her arms at an orphanage to be able to say to them, me too, I've been where you are. And so the reality is for us, And for all of us, moms or otherwise, we don't get to control this. We just get to love them and pray for them and know that God, He is so invested in their best that He's trustworthy. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, and so here's the reality. Moms, you know this, right? You see this in the difficult days. At the end of the day, you're not in control. But there is a God who demonstrated that He's worth trusting when He sent His Son to die for us. The greatest demonstration of love that has ever been seen in the world today is that when God Himself said, I'm not okay for you to be stuck in your sin of which you can do nothing about. I will send my perfect Son, my sinless Son, to die for you because I love you immeasurably more than you could ever possibly imagine. And so if we trust Him with our salvation, North Metro, we can trust Him with our children. He has proved Himself over and over and over and over and over again that He's trustworthy. And so, again, moms, it's Mother's Day. And just want to say thank you so much for your sacrifice. Thank you so much for fighting. And thank you so much for trusting your children in the hands of God. Thank you so much for even being a part of this church, that we are blessed because you're here. Clearly, none of us would be here without you. And so thank you so much for your love and your sacrifice. And, here's what we know. We, over the years, people have been very, incredibly kind by letting us know, hey, we've been praying for your family. Hey, praying for your family, praying for your family, praying for you and your family. And so I just thought it might be kind of cool. We talked with the girls, and so we just thought, it might be nice, actually, if the girls could come out. And actually, I've asked one of my daughters, my oldest, Ellie, to actually pray a blessing over all of you mothers. And so if you would welcome my girls, Ellie and Annie.
Dear Lord, none of us get to choose how we're brought into the world, but you are with us from the beginning. It is your love that protects us and brings us peace. I pray that each of the moms out there will see what is best for their children, even if they can't see it for themselves. Please give mothers insight into where their children strive and where they struggle. Allow them to rest in your sovereignty, that you love their children even more than they do and have a plan for their lives. Encourage each of them to fight for their kids even when times get tough, and don't let them be discouraged. We ask this all in your name. Amen.